I think we're connected.
Warming up.
Oof. Wow, we haven't had an episode since Tuesday.
Yeah.
Last week was bonkers.
I'm just happy we're able to still do episodes.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, as long as this stays fun, we'll keep doing it. It's not a job yet. It doesn't earn us money either.
Hey, Andre. Nice to see you join us.
We're sharing.
So it's a very, very active weekend.
Yeah, that's why you have to rest today.
Yeah. But generally okay, I guess.
I wonder how many people get confused by today's episode and actually like want to know more about the actual New York Zoo,
That's possible.
and we end up here. Blame Rosenberg.
Then it was Valentine's, which was tricky to navigate through given the events of last year, at least family-wise.
Mm.
But have to keep moving. Have to still celebrate love. Weather's been shifting between really, really warm and quite chilly. Like a surprise.
It's you.
We have fan art. That's cool. Maybe we can incorporate that to our title graphics. And then
The last one was Upon a Fable.
yeah,
Andre.
that was a worker placement game called Upon a Fable.
Hey, look.
Um, hmm,
Yeah, I guess we'll start at 9:30. Just like get things on the road
Mhm.
in like 2 minutes. No matter how much time you have off from work, it's never enough time. Then you have to go back to work. Who else is watching? There's like one other person I think on the stream. If
Uh-huh.
you're wherever you are, say hello.
Yes, we
It
can't.
would help.
We can't tell who you are. We can only see that there's more than one viewer. So please comment so we know you're there.
He's scary.
Yeah.
I was torn, like, did I want to have dessert before triggering my fasting window? But then, like, it's okay. I had a lot of desserts this weekend.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was very keto dessert full. I may have overordered.
That's okay. We still are wearing big shirts,
Mm-hmm.
quite loose.
Okay, I guess we start.
All right, let's start.
Oh, 8th sense of order.
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted, not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us. We talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. Tonight's episode is another board game episode, so we try to have them every Monday.
Every Monday is a tabletop game day.
And today is a game by Uwe Rosenberg called New York Zoo.
This angle does not do justice to the box art,
Yeah,
which is just
proper title. There you go.
look at you can move it up close. Look at these snarky animals. It's like that Arctic fox don't give a f, you know. It's like what? And that kangaroo is really big.
And then of course there's the lemming who's not part of the group.
He's a meerkat.
A meerkat, then he's staring and wishing he was.
Then why do we have another flamingo on the other side? It's like what's with this flamingo domination?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the flamingo is just a repeated art because look, there's another Statue of Liberty.
That's true, but then no Arctic fox.
But then there's another one here too. Okay. We're overthinking this. So yeah, so it's a U Rosenberg not worker placement, but it's a U Rosenberg game called New York Zoo. It's one of our favorites as of the late. And
I mean, it's super new, and we've only played it a good number of times. But oh my god, it's such a tight little experience, and I can't get over it.
Board Game Geek categorizes it as a family game. It uses abstract strategy. It has a puzzle element, and it uses animals. So let's open the box and get to see more about the game. Yeah. So the game has first the main board, which if you see it here, it's hard to see without the video.
I'm sorry.
It's okay because I can see mine also. There, see? Yeah! So this thing is your player board. And as you can see, there are various spaces as well as gaps in between certain spaces.
Yep. This being the zoo.
Mhm. This is where the tiles are laid out for all players to draw from. The game supports from 1 to 4. Did I get that right?
1 to 5.
1 to 5 players.
Ooh.
And it makes use of player boards such as these, which as you can see have some changes or differences depending on the number of players as well as player order. You have a number of, I keep forgetting the word for it, the Tetris pieces.
Poly somethings.
Polyominoes, which is like dominoes, but polyomino.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the games.
So here we have them here. Indian Summer and the like. That's the one you're thinking of.
Yeah. Was
So
that
yeah,
awesome?
so you have all these different shapes,
Yes.
which are the different part pieces in varying number of spaces.
They are also in different colors, but really they're different square counts. So
And then finally,
colors
the
is not the
box
best
has
delineation.
a very generous offering of various token pieces.
Yeah, the game stresses that it comes with 127 cute little animals. That's literally what it says in the box.
So
127.
let's get a glimpse of those cute animals.
Yeah, I think we may have brought them out on a video just to show the animals, but then we'll be very clear here.
So we have meerkats, and we have the kangaroos, we have the silver fox,
Arctic fox.
Arctic fox. We have the,
Flamingo.
and the last one being the penguin. And then not a player piece, but rather a marker for where you can move and take an action. You have the elephant.
Yay.
Oh, this is a good angle.
Yeah,
they
it's
all
a
nicely stand out.
surprisingly good angle and better shirts because we're not wearing
Yeah.
like black.
So you have all of them in the bag. And the game consists of moving around that weirdly shaped board, choosing spots to land on, which then allow you to either get puzzle pieces that you use to try to fill your board first, or
Trying to fill up this brown space here.
or animals that you place on your part pieces in order to score additional free tiles. Because whenever you are able to cover completely a puzzle piece with the animals that are on it, you get free amusement pieces, which allow you to fill the board faster.
Marco asked what's the age range for this because the number of tokens is not a selling point when you have a toddler.
Yes.
It does say 10 and above. So,
But that is for players.
yes.
But I guess it's safe to say if you have anyone else who is not playing still lower than that age group, then
Not,
it's dangerous to have the game.
Or at least have a very high table where they can't reach and decide to taste the animals.
Mm-mm.
Very big choking hazard. Okay. All right. And then, so it's funny looking at the game, just the components alone. Hey, Karen, welcome. There are a lot of things that we have seen in other Uwe Rosenberg games. One, he does love his animal figures.
Yes.
Okay. We've seen that in games like Caverna. The Agricola also have animals.
Yes,
It does, right?
yes.
It does. I feel like he codified the sheep meeple that would later make an appearance in Lowlands. The Tetris-style pieces are things we've seen in his other game system called Indian Summer, which is like a family of games with like what were the others? I can't remember now. But there were a bunch of them that also used
That
these
Spring
Tetris-
Meadow, Indian Summer. He even used it in Feast for Odin.
Feast for Odin
because
also had that mechanic.
It's all about
yes.
filling the board as well and completing everything you can.
Um,
Patchwork was the popular one which many encountered because it was the two-player game that was available for free as an app.
Yeah. So given all that though, it surprises me as a Uwe Rosenberg game because he does a lot of worker placement. He does a lot of victory point scoring things, and this game does not have that. This game is just about filling your board,
Mhm.
and it's not even as complicated as the Spring Meadow Indian Summer games where there were weird things like if you leave the gopher hole exposed,
Yes.
you get a something. But if you cover it, it's not as great. So none of those mechanics. And instead, it's a lot more streamlined, a lot more direct to the point. And as long as someone fills up his board, that person will win the game. That's it. There's nothing else to it. But despite the seemingly simple win mechanic, the game is a fascinating experience to play through. But officially it supports 1 to 5 players. And then Board Game Geek says it lasts 30 to 60 minutes, and this is totally true. The games are fairly quick, especially for a Uwe Rosenberg game. Because when I think Uwe Rosenberg, I think 1 to 2 hours for playtime. So you're really only going to do one of two things every turn when you move your tokens around. Is that if you go to the blue spaces,
Sorry, I'm trying to. I'm more worried about breaking it because of the weight.
So if you go to the blue spaces, you will get one of each of the animals that are printed on the space. And these go either to the houses you have on your board, and in the corner, you'll see these weird little huts. Or they can go to already emptied tiles on your player area. Each Tetris piece can only hold one type of animal, so you can't mix. You can also add matching animals to the same to tiles that already have the animal there, which is fine. But that's the one major move you do. Then the other is to land on the stacks of tile sets, and then you can get the topmost tile, which is typically the one with the most pieces for that stack, the largest area, and place it on your board. And when you place it on your board, you must be able to add an animal to that tile, whether it is from one of your house things or from one of your other tiles that already have animals. So the largest ones are like 7 squares big, and then the smallest are 5. So by right, if you just fill up your board with tiles, that's it. That's all you need to do. That's the minimum win condition. But there's a lot more to it.
So since it's a Euro game, there is.
I was about to say, since it's a Uwe Rosenberg game.
Well, actually, that too. There is this basic philosophy of you only have one action each round,
Mm.
and everyone has one action each round. But by choosing the right actions, you're able to have additional effects that effectively make it look like you've had multiple actions in a round. So, for example, if let's say in this space you had this tile available, so you take that action to take this tile. By placing it on your board, you are then required to place an animal on it. And in succeeding turns, if you're able to fill this with all the animals,
All of one type of animal.
then you are able to get one of the amusement park pieces, which basically serve no other purpose other than to help you fill your board faster.
Yes.
But if you think about it, in that one action of adding an animal to your tile, you then suddenly acted as if you had multiple actions to fill up more spaces on your board.
image.
And,
And
it's
then-
this
yeah.
interesting ballet of moves that
What-
makes the game interesting.
What's more is that once you fill up a space of one type of animal,
Mhm.
you remove all those animal tokens to represent it's now empty. But you're allowed to keep one, and that one animal will live in your houses for a while, and later can be used to join other tiles. When you take animals from the supply and you add them to your board, one other animal may join that animal on a tile. As long as the net result is that you don't add more than 2 animals to a single tile piece, whether they come from the supply or they come from your houses. And it's an interesting interplay of trying to fill things up quickly or maneuver your animals around the board so that they kind of spread out, because there are orange spaces on the board which you don't land on, but you just cross over. So like mirror image. Okay, this is the meerkat one, and that's the kangaroo one. These are breeding markers, so that every time the elephant crosses one of these spaces, so you don't land on them, you just cross. Once you cross one of these spaces, everyone who has at least a pair of those animals on a zoo tile can breed. You can breed up to 2 tiles with that animal type, and then you have 1 bonus breed with any other animal type, as long as you have at least 2 animals per tile of that type. And in very caverna fashion, it is the Uwe Rosenberg of breeding, where whether you have 2, 3, 4, or 5, you will only get 1 animal left,
Because only one pair breeds.
and the rest watch. So,
Now, if you're wondering how does one keep track of all these rules while playing, they're all on the player board. As you can see here in the top, we have the outline for the rules regarding the movement of the elephant. In this board, it says the elephant moves 1 to 4 spaces, and that's because this is for the 2-player.
oh my God, the 2-player rules are very
2-player board.
different.
You see here in the other one is the breeding rule. So you have the breeding icon, and you see
You
up to
don't get
2
a
animals
bonus breed in a 2-player
can go in.
game.
Yes, there's no bonus animal for 2-player games. And then we see here that whenever you add an animal to a park tile, you're allowed to move another animal to join that animal from the house. And that's what makes this game interesting, because
That's it. That's the rules.
with all those basic rules in play, it still feels deep. It still feels there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of consideration that you make every turn. You might think, oh, it's all about filling the board, so I'll just make sure I grab the big pieces every time I move. But that's not the best way to do it.
Because big pieces are hard to fill up with animals, and you're never going to be, it'll be harder to complete animals and get those amusement tiles
Mhm.
to fill things up. And because of the nature of these shapes, you will always end up with annoying gaps.
Or
Yeah.
gaps, yeah.
And you will need the amusements, because they include spaces that are only 2 squares big, or even better. Come on! Oh my God! Come on! Is that you have single tile concession stands,
Mhm.
but you can fill in any gap, and it is assumed that at the end of the day you have an unlimited number of the 1 tile concession stands, which you can only get by completion.
So, using the back of the box, as you can see, that's the sample of how the player board would have all the puzzle pieces in play. Here's the sample of a player board with a bunch of animals already on it. And yes, 127 cute animal tokens included.
Mark asks, you get to pick the amusement pieces? Yes. The entire inventory is sprawled out. So, in the early game, it is to your advantage probably to get the biggest piece.
Mhm.
Or do you want to get the 3-tile L already because it fits the hole that you
Mhm.
created immediately?
Yeah, generally, the biggest pieces are the smartest moves at the early parts of the game because there's just so much to fill up.
And they run out quickly.
Mhm.
Mitch is asking, how does it compare to other U games? And that was, I think that's the whole point of this review, is just trying to figure out and pick apart what did he create here.
So,
I mean, like, what the heck?
um, I would say that the first thing I can note about this game being a Uwe Rosenberg game is that it's the simplest, but it doesn't feel the shallowest game.
That is true.
The game still feels as full-bodied as some of his other games, like Indian Summer, but it still takes less than 30 minutes to teach the the game rules.
And Yu is committed to appearing in his manuals now. It's like he's always giving asides. But I agree with that. And then for some reason, and I tell Toby this every time we play New York Zoo, is that I don't know why I like this so much more than Spring Meadow, Indian Summer, and the
Mhm.
like. I don't know why. There's something about, I don't know if it's the theme, the way the game mechanics come together, but this feels so much better to me, and it's so much more satisfying. I guess because it's both the joy of filling up your board with the Tetris pieces, and then also just collecting all these animal meeples. And if anybody follows my Instagram feed, you will see I post a lot of pictures of the hordes of animals that fill up the zoo, and it's such a happy little experience.
I think it's partly also because the way the mechanics connect to the theme feels so much more smooth here compared to his other games. For example, in Feast of Odin, you do have yourself filling up that board, which is filled with negative points, and it's only by covering it up that you start getting your positive points. But I don't know exactly what I'm doing. What am I filling up?
I don't.
Why am I putting
don't
tokens
understand that
on
point
this?
of Feast for Odin.
Why am I
Why-
marking the coins here and there?
It's like, why can I put food alongside weapons to fill up this board, and then I get an island and fill it up with stuff?
Now he does it very well in Feast of Odin in the sense of how you have the treasures which you can then grab, and they're also the same shapes and you want to fit it in. Or you have the feasting table, which you try to place the food down as if you're laying it down on the table. But the main play area doesn't make that much sense. Indian Summer and
the
related games were closer in the sense that we were filling this field, but then had that disconnect again of these are holes that if you leave it open, there's an advantage in doing so. But then if you cover it, then you get points. And it felt again very weird. So why do
I care about this gopher? Yeah.
Whereas here in New York Zoo, you're building your park, and if that park space is filled up with enough animals, then you empty it out and now get the bonus amusements in. So it's sort of like you made enough money to expand your park more.
Maybe.
And you then keep one of those animals to continue building your park. And it's that simple a narrative that makes a nice mesh between the mechanics and the theme.
It's like for those of you who play, like we recently featured Dinosaur Island, and it's a great game. But some of you may not care about the complicated process of mixing and matching DNA to create dinosaurs, and you just want to build a park. Then this game totally scratches that itch, and trying to figure out what pieces to put where. You will not necessarily be able to orient them all the same way. I do try that every time I play, but it still largely works out. And I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's a nice little theme park game without being too complicated. Unlike Dinosaur Island and Unfair. Yeah. So and then I think once you get the rhythm of the game, then you start making decisions like, if I get these animals and I fill up a tile, is that better than waiting for the breeding spot where I'll get a free breed anyway, and then maybe I don't need to get that particular animal, and you end up choosing that configuration, or the reverse being, oh my god, penguin breeding is coming and I still don't have a penguin on my board, or I have one penguin, he needs a friend so that he will breed, so what can I do to maneuver it? And you will see people either gathering animals from the reserve, or reshuffling animals on their zoo tableau so that they have pairs of animals ready for breeding. And just seeing that go back and forth, it's quite satisfying. Um, then there's the funny conundrum of, okay, you got your animals spread out and you're like super breeding like mad, but you have no more animals to place when you get new tiles. So can you get a new tile, or do you maneuver, or so I super enjoy that.
So Mitch asks, is the box mabigat like Caverna? No.
Not as heavy, definitely.
Because as much as it's an interesting game, the boards are flimsy, which is a negative thing for many people. But I think for this game, I
it's
don't
just
mind.
fine. Like, I mean, you could laminate it if you want.
It wasn't like Terraforming Mars, where the flimsiness of the board felt like could have been better. And pretty much this is your wooden pieces, which all fits in one container.
It fits in a bag and a container. And hey, Jed, thanks for tuning in.
It's nicely lightweight, and it's,
And the box actually still has a lot of space. They managed enough for a very basic cardboard liner. And everything else is just bagged. And it once it's tucked in and you put the boards on top, it's quite flat, and not bad at all. There are no other major components. The other weird, I guess the only weird component I think is there's a question mark token, which is used to indicate when you're measuring, when you want to take a tile from a stack and check it against your board and measure if it fits.
Sorry, Mitch, it's 10 only because there's 2 watching accounts, so it's only 8.
It's only 8. And then was this so? You leave the question mark on the stack when you're measuring, just so that you don't forget where it is. When everybody breeds, it's not quite as like joyous as like everybody earning money in Machikoro, but it's kind of close. It's kind of close. It's like, hey, breed, penguins breed. Everybody's penguins breed. And yeah, and then I think the resulting park you get at the end is quite fun.
So the game doesn't have any direct conflict moments. There's no, I do this and I remove animals from you, or I do this and I destroy this and that. So it can feel like you're all playing your own solo game. But the fact that you're all drawing from this conveyor belt of pieces, and whether it's the person stealing the piece you want, or simply choosing to step past it, and you now can't get that piece you really wanted, or worse, not move enough. So you were hoping to get there by a later stage, but then you realize they probably noticed it and decided, I'll just move one step and I'll just get this.
I do this a lot.
And that can ruin so many plans. The fact that the breeding turn also happens as long as someone moves past it, and that affects everyone, is something that you will find yourself obsessing over, wanting to prepare for. But the game is so well designed that you will always find yourself not being ready for certain breeding moments.
Yeah, I've yet to have a game where every time we pass breeding, I breed. It's not going to happen. You will always be missing animals.
The game still also allows some level of flexibility. When you try to choose animals, if you don't like the 2 offered ones, you can choose one of your choice, even if it's not the offered ones.
Yes.
But the choice of 1 animal over 2 is actually quite a big choice when you realize the overall scheme of things. Mitch asks if there's a favorite animal. None of the animals mechanically have a difference, but we do have our favorites. For no real good reason other than we like having those tokens.
Like, I thought I would be gravitating to the penguin more, but then I find my board is almost always filled up with kangaroos and flamingos. I don't know why. I don't know.
I like the meerkats. I like how they're
unpainted nature.
Yes. And they're all just, like little soldiers standing there. What else?
The
The
Arctic fox is pretty.
hmm,
It's very quaint.
even if in terms of artwork, he's the one who judges everyone the most. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that face.
And yes, that penguin is very fat. The penguin, that kangaroo is just very chunky. It's a very chunky kangaroo, and it's the same art on the board. So, yeah. So Yamapura is like the social blocking. Yeah, it is, and it's just really that your moves inconvenience others, and it's funny because on any player turn, because of the way they've divided the moves based on number of players, you will always have the option to get either tiles or animals. It's
Mhm.
like you're never going to be totally blocked.
Mhm.
And if a stack runs out, you just skip it. It's no longer a
Counted
movement
among the
space.
steps. Yes.
Yeah, so you're always going to have options, but it may not just be the one you absolutely want. And we've seen already a number of games where like you've prepared your player board to have a perfect spot for this particular style set. You think they've done the math in their head that when it comes to their turn, they're going to be able to get that piece. And then you get to deny them by not moving enough. And like,
or
I'll just get one animal.
or by gently urging a different player, uy, pwede rin yun, no? And then they'll look at it and you're like,
I feel Toby's done the social nudge. He's been trying the social nudge.
no, I don't do the social
Oh,
nudge.
please.
You're the one who does the social nudge.
I don't social nudge. I just do.
Um,
I just jump the elephant or slow down.
Now, there's always the possibility that more than one player completes their board in a round. And that's because when the board gets animals and the animals completely fill up an enclosure, then they get an amusement piece. And that amusement piece can possibly lead to you completing your board even if it's not your turn.
Mm.
In such a moment, the winner is then decided by whoever has the most animals.
On their board.
Which is an interesting twist because if you think about it, you might join the runnings to be the winner because you completed enclosures. But by completing those enclosures, you have less animals on your board that moment.
They go back to the supply.
So it's a very interesting way to make sure that the person who triggered the round and most likely completed the piece by getting a piece has a bigger chance of winning than the ones who completed it by enclosures being complete.
I've yet to have a game where like I didn't finish by completing because normally I'm down to like those piso holes and like I need an amusement tile to fill up the gaps and it's rarely like I will get the winning tile that will help me and it's hard to map out tiles.
Mark Poa mentions the social nudge, or as Jovan would call it, the worm tongue.
Yes,
Yes.
whispering in your ear.
I don't do social nudge. In fact, I'm even more. I always tell people the more advantageous move because I don't like people, making mistakes out of ignorance because they're not used to the game yet, or they don't realize there's a better thing they can do.
That's your social nudge.
No, I mean, sometimes they'll be like, "Oh no, I can do that." I'm like, "Yeah."
Half the time it inconveniences me because then it's like I wanted that tile.
Well, that's because you were counting on their ignorance. That
I wasn't thinking about their ignorance. I just want the tile, okay? Because in a Tetris-style game, you're gonna want
every move counts.
that
admittedly.
complicated piece, and some of these pieces are bonkers, guys. I mean, look at this. It is an arc with a branch, or this one's just a big hat.
Yeah, you have really annoying ones like
What is that? It's a chair.
or and then just to spite you, we have a
It's like a vice grip. I don't know. The 7 tiles are It's like super annoying. And depending, it's not both based on player, the number of players in the game, and your player order. It will determine how many houses you have and how much area you have to fill. Typically, the first player in a game, and I'm trying to find a decent example here. So the first player would have something like this where he has fewer houses and such. But when you compare it to another player in the same game set who has more houses
Yeah.
here and then a different area to fill up. So it's tricky. It's tricky. And it's nice that they codified everything um, just into these player boards.
Mhm.
That's super, super convenient.
The game was just released last year. There are no expansions yet. Sadly, I have not seen the digital version of the game either.
I can't
Um,
imagine how you would expand this game. It's like more annoying pieces. What?
or more. I would see maybe a variant of the amusement tiles.
Hmm.
So like there's a different set of amusement tiles. Maybe a variant of the player boards.
Player board is probably an
You'll
opportunity.
probably have one which is a certain shape or something like that.
Or it with this there are tiles that are restricted to animal types. So
Yeah.
like, oh, only aquatic animals can be on this tile,
Hmm,
and that'll be so annoying.
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey, but to be fair, I feel like especially in Uwe Rosenberg's path over the last few years, he's just been creating new games over and just iterating on different ideas. I
Mhm.
haven't been seeing him go through a lot of expansion creep, and even for his older stuff that we all love and are very popular. Think about it, like Caverna only really has the Forgotten Folk as a
Yes.
full expansion.
Without counting the
Promo
promo
cards
tiles.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. And then Agricola, instead of making a full, just make an expansion for Agricola, he made the two-player Agricola creatures big and
Mhm.
small. Feast for Odin has an expansion, but then that I think that game is big enough to justify that it can create release more stuff for it.
Mhm.
But
That
yeah,
is the Norwegians. Yeah.
and then when you think about, and you just think about Spring Meadow, Indian Summer, they're very related games. They're all thematically similar, but they're all standalone games, and they're not so much interconnected. So it's just interesting what he's been doing with his life as of late. This being, isn't he the same guy who did Bonanza?
Bonanza. Yes.
Oh my God, he started with Bonanza, and like Jesus,
There
not
was,
started,
so
but
there was
one of
always
his first big games.
farming or animal
Yeah,
breeding.
he does
aspect.
have a let's go back to country
Hmm.
sort of thing. Although then how do you explain at the gates of Loyang? But again, it's trading, I guess.
Yeah. So,
Funny.
given that that's New York Zoo, strategies to consider is bigger tiles do mean you try to fill in your map faster, but it also means it takes longer for your animals to cover or completely cover the piece for amusements. So you'll have to embrace that in the first few turns. Do you aim for completing something quick so you grab the biggest amusement tile? Or do you aim for the bigger ones so while others are busy with animals, you're just filling your board faster?
I do a mix of big tiles, but then as soon as like a 5 or a 4 tile thing becomes available, well, sorry, more like a 6 or a 5
Mhm.
tile becomes available realistically within the game, I grab at least one, and that's the one I keep completing. And timing your completion to always channel that one is great.
Because you can put animals again on already cleared tiles in later stages. So knowing when to recycle certain enclosures to make those the fast developing ones is key. Depending on the number of players, you can also trigger breeding in more than just one animal set, depending on the number of players.
Yes.
So pay attention to that because you want to map out that when the breeding happens, maybe both get something and they both complete, which then means you get a bonus. And that's like having 3 moves in one round.
Yeah. I mean, from a point of personal preference, I will always say that if you have the option to breed, set yourself up to breed rather than just completing a tile by drawing an animal from the reserve and adding it to a space. Because especially in higher player counts, you can breed on 2 tiles of the same animal type based on the breeding icon, and then probably a bonus one. So that's up to 3 tiles that will gain animals
Mhm.
in what is not even a move. It is just the elephant passing through the space.
Yes.
So that has a lot of potential. Even just breeding the printed animal and a bonus type is more than enough because that's 2 tiles that you could potentially complete at a time versus just one maybe one or two when you draw tiles from the box. So that's me. I'm always like very very conscious of the breathing cycles. And after a few games, you get a rhythm for like um, when your next turn is going to come around.
Mhm.
Because it's okay. That's the tricky part. Because the elephant is allowed to move anywhere between 1 and 4 spaces, depending on number of players. On average, 1 to 3.
Mhm.
Um, then trying to figure out, okay, we're in a 3-player game, and then how do I make sure that by the time my turn comes, I can sort of maneuver here, but I also want to make sure that all the breathing spaces that get jumped across by other players, I can take advantage of, and figuring out the beats and the cycles of that is that. Yes, Marco, I will gladly own up to setting yourself up to breed as a quote for me. It is my main strategy for this game to breed on time, to breed at will.
Other strategies would include um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Because a lot of it is just really deciding on the moment.
Yeah,
You might want to plan ahead, but you can't get too locked into a plan too long because things change quickly in this game. Whether it's the piece being taken, the elephant not getting to where you want it to go, or or you simply realizing that you miscalculated and it will take more than the number of turns you planned for
I've
an
had
enclosure
that.
to be filled up.
I thought like, yes, after this breeding, I will need two more. So much I was excited and wrong. I have a new one which like I only really got to try in the last game was that don't feel bad if you never complete the animals on certain tiles. I
Mm.
have abandoned because like early in the game you end up with these bigger tile pieces that are 7
And there's a
squares. Like,
completist urge to make
yeah.
sure you fill it up.
But then in the end, I have this last game. I cannibalized those tiles and moved those animals to
Out.
smaller tiles so that they could complete faster.
And you're allowed to do that as long as an enclosure is never emptied completely of animals.
Yeah, except when you fill it up. Otherwise, as long as you leave at least one, it's a valid enclosure piece. And so I have like slowly moved animals away
Mhm.
from my starting pieces to get them to the smaller ones that'll complete faster. Mark's like, yeah, reminds you conversation taken out of context, like discussing stuff for a bank. Oh, I think all tabletop game discussions, when taken out of context, sound very strange. Especially the ones that involve animals for
Or
some
ano,
reason.
all geeky conversations taken
There
out
is
of the
that.
context. Because I mean, even something as simple as us praising a show like Battlestar Galactica and all as a group going, so say we all, others will think we're a cult. So, but that's the joy of being a geek. Yeah, so I think that's it. I'm not sure if there's anything else we have to say about New York Zoo other than
It's really fun. It's really really fun. That's like my main takeaway from this game, and
Yes.
that's why I've been like almost every opportunity is like New York Zoo. It's like if especially we actually risk meeting up with a few friends over the weekend, and
Mhm.
it's like, oh my god, guys, you got to try New York Zoo. And I think the other thing I will celebrate is that the level of difficulty is quite accessible.
Mhm.
So it's still not quite gateway, but it's very close.
Yes.
It's very close. Mitch is asking minutes to play. Oh, again, 30 to 60 minutes. Not even kidding.
Mhm.
It's under an hour.
Mhm.
Marco and Mrs. Geeky conversation to get a context. You last statements on New York Zoo.
I'm happy we were able to grab a copy when someone was
We
selling it
being Toby.
on the second-hand market. But it's a new game out, and I know many of the shops like Gaming Library and the like currently have it in stock or have run out of stock. But grab it if you can because it is worth your investment. It's a good enough game for something new to try. It has a solo mode, so if you're going to be playing alone at home, it still works.
Plus 127 cute animal pieces.
Yeah. Just don't don't get this game if you're the type of person who tends to lose things because it does have a lot of fiddly bits and those will affect the game if any of them go missing.
I'm suddenly like super bothered. Like, wait, how did we get to 127?
There, you have the breakdown.
There are more meerkats and flamingos.
Mm-hmm.
How interesting. How interesting. There are 28 meerkats, 26 flamingos, 24 tree kangaroos, not just kangaroos,
Mm-hmm.
24 penguins, 24 foxes, and the elephant. Why are there more meerkats and flamingos? I'm going to think about this for a while.
But that's pretty much my stake. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. We if we were a show that did recommendations, we highly recommend this game. But it's just super fun. Just wow, it's all the snarkiest animals in one frame.
I'd hate to see a local version of this game.
Why?
Maybe the animals look sad. But
Wow.
I think that's all the time we have for this episode. We had a lot of fun, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
Of course, if you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, we will always accept your responses here at the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, all Toby No Shade, RG Sunico.
You'll also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. What are your favorites, favorite Uwe Rosenberg games, or favorite games with animals, or favorite games with breeding? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Thanks for tuning in, even though we were late. Good night.